Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Punjabi Adi. Jaya Mr. Pad Paramahamsa Padavrikarcharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Padavrikarcharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavanda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, as usual, I'm not sure where we are. Text 15, I think. 16? Thank you. Okay.
Oh, I think it is 15.
15.
Yes, I think it's 15, Prabhu.
Okay.
I wrote it down.
It's the voice of God. Goddess, anyway. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, now I'm showing my senility. Did she say 15 or 16? 15 for sure, 100%. Okay. On this 24th day of August, 2021 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are still in chapter 14 entitled The Three Modes of Material Nature. We're on text 15 near the top of page 578. Rajasi Pralayam Gatva Karma Sangishu Jayate Tadha Palinas Tamasi Mudhayonishu Jayate Rajasi Pralayangatva Karma Sangishu Jayate Tatapalinas Tamasi Mudayonishu Jayate Rajasi Pralayangatva Karma Sangishu Jayate Tatapalinas Tamasi Mudayonishu Jayate Rajasi Pralayangatva karma sangisha jayate tatapalinas tamasi mudayo nisha jayate. Go ahead, Govardhan. Oh, I'm sorry. Dharma, you're on. Oh, yes. Seeing your man. Rajasi palayangatva karma sangisha jayate tatapalinas tamasi mudayo nisha jayate. Rajasi palayangatva karma sangisha jayate tatapalinas tamasi mudayo nisha jayate. Rajasi palayangatva karma sangisha jayate tatapalinas tamasi mudayo nisha jayate. Rajasi palayatkanva karma sangisha jayate tatapalinas tamasi mudayo nisha jayate. Kevin. Rajasi palayangatva karma sangisha jayate tatapalinas tamasi mudayo nisha jayate. You want to go? Uh-oh. Okay. Daniel's in training. He'll be chanting soon. All right. Word by word. Rajasi in passion, palayam dissolution, gatvat attaining, karma sangishu in the association of those engaged in fruitive activities. Jayate takes birth, tata similarly, palinaha being dissolved, tamasi in ignorance, muda yonishu in animal species. Jayate takes birth. Translation: when one dies in the mode of passion, he takes birth among those engaged in fruitive activities. And when one dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the animal kingdom. Purport: some people have the impression that when the soul reaches the platform of human life, it never goes down again. This is incorrect. According to this verse, if one develops the mode of ignorance, after his death he is degraded to an animal form of life. From there, one has to again elevate himself by an evolutionary process to come again to the human form of life. Therefore, those who are actually serious about human life should take to the mode of goodness, and in good association transcend the modes and become situated in Krishna consciousness. This is the aim of human life. Otherwise, there is no guarantee that the human being will again attain to the human status. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of the Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, this is, what can I say, serious business. Krishna is saying here that human life is rare. You can lose it. You're not going to die. Nobody dies. You know, you keep going to another life. You get born in another life, take on another identity, and whatever form you happen to go into, you identify with that, and you have to act like that. Can you imagine? Human being acts in, doesn't care, has no knowledge, simply according to the senses, acting sense gratification, steeped in the mode of ignorance, loses the human form of life, gets born as a dog or a cat or even lower species. And then, how long do you have to wait to gradually come up? Prabhupada mentions the evolutionary process. It's not that the bodies evolve, the bodies are there. It's just like an apartment. You know, you have a certain qualification, you can enter a certain apartment, you have enough money to pay for it. If you lose your job, then you have to leave that apartment and go to another apartment. Sometimes you lose all the apartments, you're on the street. You know, it's just up and down, up and down. Same thing is true for the living entity. If we act sinfully, we're overcome by the mode of ignorance. Then, especially in this age, we have you can perform extremely sinful activities without even knowing it. You know, just living an ordinary life, going down to Ralph's, getting their hamburger meat, you know, and cooking up dinner, you know. Severe sin. Everything counts. You know, it means that you're now implicated in that poor cow's death. You know, you've contributed to that. You have to pay for it. There's no free lunch. So this knowledge is so important for acting and learning how to act in such a way that you'll at least stay as a human being and hopefully be elevated and gradually come to the point of, as we've been describing, Krishna will describe at the end of the chapter, transcending the modes and breaking free from the round of birth and death, which is so hazardous. So I wanted to make sure I had enough time left. This is it. We have a golden opportunity here. And that is, we have the presence of an actual walking miracle, I'll say. How this Sharaba Prabhu, who I've known for years on and off, I remember when he came to LA and everything, joins Krishna consciousness in the most amazing way. And I'm going to read this story. And Sharaba, I know you're not anything, you're anything but proud and you know, ostentatious. But would it be possible to move your chair up here, just to sit here, and give him a mic? He can, hopefully the camera will see him, okay? And this is for the people out listening outside as well as our group here. Because I want to read this story that has, he originally told Mahatattva, right? The Bhakti Chaitanya Swami? And he, okay, come and sit here. It was published in Croatian. Okay, so it's been bouncing around, and he's told more and more of it. So it's not, yeah, because it's not capped. So yeah, move this, and you sit over here, because I think you'll be able to see you over here. By rights, we should probably move this back, but I think it'll be all right. Is Tapas, you around? He could tell us what.
Yes, Prabhu, I am moving the cameras right now.
Oh, you're moving the cameras.
Yes, even if you see it from the audience, it will be okay. I'll be moving the camera.
All right, but this is good here because I want to maybe to make comments while I read and add special detail. Because anyway, you'll see. So we better get going, and I'm going to read this now. A special phenomenon here. This is the story of how Sharaba Dasa joined Krishna consciousness. So this is all Sharaba speaking. It's in the first person. And if you want to make a comment, just give me a little indication.
There is little changes in, I think it says Serbia is
Yeah, no, not something like that, but something must, you know, some of the things you told me in Washington which are not in here. Okay, until age 18 or 19, I was like everyone else in Serbia, occupied with attempts to turn my materialistic dreams into reality. A good job, a big car, a house or an apartment with a beautiful wife and lots of ruddy-cheeked children. All my thoughts were focused on realizing this dream until one day, and to this day I don't know why or how, I suddenly got a completely different vision of that dream, the realistic one. Family fights, misunderstandings, deep-rooted selfishness and intolerance. Now each day seemed senseless, until the idea of committing suicide as a solution to my despair became more and more prominent in my mind. Now let's set the scene. What year are we at now? 18, 19? 1990 or so?
88.
1988
Yeah.
in Serbia,
Yeah.
former Yugoslavia. Okay, so that sets the scene. So suddenly he's undergoing an existential crisis. Happiness, joy, satisfaction. For me, these were only a dim memory. Aware of the blind alley I was in, I became desperate to find some solution, some shelter. Totally hopeless and lonely, wandering in darkness, somehow or other I struggled on. I tried to forget all my miseries and problems by absorbing myself in drinking, smoking, sleeping, sport, sex, etc. In other words, I didn't know how to get out of the deep mud I was in. So I plunged even deeper into it, deep enough to hide from both the mud and myself. I thought, let me embrace nothingness, darkness, unconsciousness. Perfect for the verse we just read about the mode of ignorance. I mean, what could be? This is an extended purport to this. So far, but watch, we're going to move on the chapter till you get to the end where you perform pure devotional service. After finishing high school, I had to go into the army, where even deeper realizations of the emptiness of materialistic life were revealed to me. After the army, I went to college, but for a whole year I just experienced more emptiness and pointlessness. Then the first sign of hope appeared. A student I met at college started telling me about yoga, particularly transcendental meditation. I took up the practice, meditating 15 minutes twice a day, and found some relief. I thought I had finally found the real thing. In this way, 2 more years passed. Then, although somewhat satisfied, I began feeling the need for real purification and more concrete answers to life's questions. I knew about the Hare Krishna movement. And had even been attracted by the Maha Mantra and the Bhagavad Gita as it is. But my roommate had advised me, this is quite a story here, but my roommate had advised me, don't get too close to that sect. And so I didn't look into the Hare Krishnas. On one occasion, I was at a friend's house in a nearby city, searching through his books, looking for something interesting. I remember seeing on these books such words as Jing-Jang, Tantra, Freud, Yogananda, and Yoga, until I found the Bhagavad Gita as it is. An unfamiliar voice within me suddenly said, this is what you're looking for. This is the real truth. Here you'll find all the answers. Take this book and read it, study it, surrender to it completely, to each and every word in it, worship each page of it. Getting a lot of help there.
That was actually...
Yeah,
Okay.
Is it on? Yeah.
So that was quite experience. I have to kind of like say something. That friend, he was also like just started practicing TM, but he was like some kind of engineer. He had a lot of money, but he lived by himself, and he had like 2 or 3 bedroom apartment, and he lived in one room, and one room was like full of books, like literally empty room, and it was like, I'm talking about thousands of books. And so I came to visit him, and I was like spiritually inclined, and so he's like, just go, like you can read something.
And all the books were like spiritual books.
It was just like boxes of like just like literally like hill of the books, like all spiritual.
Right.
So I went there for like 2-3 hours, and I'm pulling this, reading this, and reading that, and it's just kind of like my frustration just going deeper, because not everything I read is just, it's not like that. So what happened, like at one point I pulled Bhagavad Gita out and is like that, like all the kind of like bluish purple picture, and I still remember that when I pulled it out, it was like it was a person. He was alive.
Wow.
And he was like, wow, I was like, wow, because I was pulling so many books for like 2-3 hours.
Yeah.
And it was like, you pull book, it's just book, But when I pulled Bhagavad Gita, it was as if I pull like something alive. And then I heard that voice.
Okay.
And it was like so clear.
Wow.
Like that's what you're looking for, and whatever you were there.
We want to move on. We don't run out of time here. We have time now. All right, let's go on. Thank you for that. But when I opened the book and read the words Hare Krishna, my roommate's advice came to my mind, and I put it aside as if it were dangerous. Don't get mixed up with the Hare Krishnas. So there's a war going on here. Later, the voice inside me returned when I saw Krishna's picture for the first time. Quote, decorate the picture with flowers, the voice said. Worship it. Meditate on that person. Unfortunately, when I found out that the person was Krishna, I again recalled my roommate's advice and took the voice to be an hallucination. So we make it into a movie. Still, my resistance was weakening. Apparently by chance, I went to a concert featuring a band called Nityananda, a Serbian devotee rock band. The special guest that night was one of the initiating spiritual masters in the Hare Krishna movement, His Holiness Satchidananda Swami. That concert was the turning point for me. After that night, I could no longer practice transcendental meditation. Instead of the transcendental meditation mantra, The Hare Krishna Mahamantra kept playing in my mind involuntarily. Very soon the Mahamantra became everything in my life, giving me a feeling of satisfaction and inner fullness. I chanted almost constantly while performing my daily duties. All anxiety, heaviness, and misery disappeared from my heart, and I thought that no one in the whole world was more fortunate than I was. What a transformation. Now he's ready to commit suicide. In due course, all my family members started reading Srila Prabhupada's books and chanting Hare Krishna, so that my home slowly transformed into the spiritual world. From reading Srila Prabhupada's books, I understood the importance of accepting a bona fide spiritual master and receiving initiation. Now, once you should remember, this is the chapter, part of a chapter in Vijay Prabhu's book about called, what is it, the treasure of the Brihat Madanga, something like that. It's all about Sankirtan principles and many stories like this, how the books have saved people. We're hearing them every day, you know. They're actually going on, still going on. So this is one of the most amazing ones. From reading Srila Prabhupada's books, I understand the importance of accepting a bona fide spiritual master and receiving initiation. To accomplish that goal, I would have to live in the association of devotees. But I didn't know how to meet devotees because at that time I lived in the Bosnian town of Travnik, where there were no Hare Krishna temples. A war was going on, and military forces and barricades surrounded the city. Battles between Serbs, Croatians, and Muslims were blasting in all possible combinations. Serbs against Croatians, Muslims against Serbs, Croatians against Muslims, etc. And to get out of Travnik, I had to cross all those fronts, battle fronts. Feeling a little discouraged, I started gathering information on how to get from Travnik to Croatia, specifically to Zagreb or Rijeka, cities that I knew had temples. I didn't find any good news. It seemed that in Gornji Vakuf, a town just outside of Travnik, soldiers were shooting at everyone without discrimination, even at the United States Peace Forces, known as UNPROFOR, and Red Cross volunteers. I waited about 20 more days, hoping the situation would get better, but it only got worse. After one more month of studying Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita as it is, I prayed to Krishna, "My dear Lord Krishna, I beg you to help me get to the temple." Or I beg you to help me to get to a temple. I found great inspiration in the verses like, "Mare Krishna Rake Ke, Rake Krishna Mare Ke." And this becomes his mantra that he keeps all in his mind. Which means, if Krishna wants to kill you, no one can protect you. And if Krishna wants to protect you, no one can kill you. Especially that second part. I decided to put my life in Krishna's hands and go to Croatia by foot. Before I started on my journey, a few soldiers told me not to go because in Gornji Vakuf, they were killing people, cutting their throats, severing their ears, plucking out their eyes. But they couldn't stop me. Feeling Krishna's protection, on February 11th, 1993, at 1 p.m., with just a few personal belongings, I started on the journey to Croatia through Gornji Vakuf. The whole time I chanted the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra on my japa beads. After about 10 hours of walking and chanting, I came to the border of Gornji Vakuf. I was surprised at how easily I had reached that far. It was night and very dark. From my position about a mile outside the center of the city, I heard shooting, explosions, and bullets and shells flying from one side of the city to the other. I decided to take the road that wound around the city. After about 10 minutes of walking, I entered a small village where literally all the houses had been burned down. The remaining walls revealed that the houses had been new, built in a modern style. A little further down the road, a haystack was burning, giving off the only light in that part of the village. An eerie silence pervaded everything. I thought, I don't know what hell looks like, but it must be something like this. In the courtyard of one house, a cow and her calf were standing, staring at the burning haystack, their eyes filled with tears. I decided to stop there to see if I could do something for the cow and calf. I stood by the wall of a house, illuminated by the burning haystack, and loudly shouted, "Is anyone there?" The reply was, "Click, click." And then through the window of another house, someone started shooting at me. Bullets whizzed around my legs and head, bouncing off the ground and broken walls. I ran as fast as I could, while fiery bullets continued to fly all around me. I kept running for about 15 minutes without stopping. Oh my God, I thought, am I alive? I was in a state of shock. I couldn't tell whether I was alive or dead. I clenched my hand and felt my japa beads. I nervously repeated the Maha Mantra. I'm alive, I concluded. Everything's okay. Let's keep going. Little by little, as I realized what had happened, my faith in Krishna increased more and more, while my old conception of God as some light, some impersonal force, vanished. Because I chanted the Maha Mantra the whole time, my distress quickly diminished, and my desire to get to a temple rapidly grew. For the next 20 minutes, I walked and chanted, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Everything was peaceful as I neared the exit from Gornji Vakuf. Then suddenly, on my left, I heard someone shout, "Stop!" along with the ominous click, click. I stopped but continued to chant. "Who are you?" the voice demanded. A spirit soul, I thought, but after a short pause I said, "A pilgrim, a well-wisher." The stranger came out of the shadows, pointing his huge gun at me. He came right up to me and stared at my face, apparently a bit confused by my answer. After finding no weapons on me, not even a pocket knife, the man was even more confused, but he considered me harmless, and therefore he relaxed. But then from the darkness another soldier appeared, shouting and swearing. "On the ground!" he yelled. As I lay on the ground, he searched me. Not finding anything, he got mad. I was still chanting. The two soldiers started arguing about what to do with me. The first soldier wanted to take me to their commander, but the second wanted to kill me on the spot. And when the second soldier heard me mumbling something, he really became furious. He aimed his gun at me, preparing to shoot. For a moment I stopped chanting, but then I remembered reading that it is very auspicious to chant Hare Krishna while dying. So I started chanting again. The second soldier called me ill names, and then before I read the rest of it, you told me something happened there. You were chanting, and he put the gun right up to your head. Hit.
Yeah, the machine gun, because he was standing above me.
Machine gun, Hare Krishna.
So, like, huge machine gun. And it was literally like entering to my mouth from the cheek. He was like pressing it inside because I was chanting. And he was like, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
But he told you to stop chanting, right?
Yeah, because he thought it's some, like a Muslim prayer.
Oh, I see.
Because I had the green hat, accidentally.
And that's the
the
green collar.
Green collar is like Muslim collar.
The green color is a Muslim color, he says.
So he was thinking I'm praying like some Arabic.
Allah Akbar. Allah
yeah,
Akbar,
something, yeah.
So he's getting you to stop to chant, but you wouldn't stop chanting.
I wouldn't stop chanting. Yeah. So then he
pulled back a little bit. Was
when you put the bullet in you charge the.
And as it says right here, and he pulled the trigger, point blank. He's lying on the ground. The guy's standing over him. I felt something hit my back, and then I saw the bullet bounce off a stone and fly by the other soldier's head. The bullet had been deflected by something in my backpack, which was full of what? What was in the backpack?
It was just T-shirts.
T-shirts. It's just nothing hard. Now tell me that's not a total miracle. Krishna protect. Mare Krishna Rake Krishna Marike.
Seems like from like laws of, if you look from the laws of physics, what happened that, because all my clothes was like pierced. When I opened, T-shirt has like 4 holes.
Okay.
Because it was folded. So, and there was an exact hole when you look at that bag, where it entered when it came out. But it looks like when they hit the bag, these like little parts of second that it was diverted by bag enough to side to miss me.
Yeah. And
then hit the rock and almost killed the.
Well, obviously there's some obvious physical explanation, but it doesn't make any sense. A backpack full of T-shirts, and they get deflected this monstrous bullet.
Yeah, all was pierced. It was on my back, and everything was pierced, and there's 2 holes, and somehow it didn't hit me.
Somehow it didn't hit. That's it. That's the explanation. Okay. And then I saw the bullet bounce off a stone and fly by the other soldier's head. The bullet had been deflected by something in my backpack! Exclamation point. Quote, "What are you doing?" the first soldier shouted to the guy who shot it. "Are you trying to kill me?" The other one yelled something back, and again I had to verify whether I was alive or dead. I was still chanting and didn't feel any pain. Good sign, I thought. The soldier who had shot his rifle was now scared and distressed. Like Hiranyakashipu with Prahlad, right? He tried to kill him in so many ways, and then he gets scared. What kind of powers does he have? He was touching me, unable to believe he had missed me from the distance of 1 foot. Then a third soldier came, clearly the senior to the other two. He took my old identification card from my pocket and said, "Let's take him to the commander." In the commander's office, I was interrogated for a long time. They decided to kill me by hanging me from a tree or shooting me because the photo in my identification card didn't really resemble me anymore. He'd been transformed by Hare Krishna.
I had hair.
And you had hair, yeah.
And then I was shaved already. I shaved myself.
Oh, you already shaved up. Didn't match. Still, for some reason, I remained very calm. My calmness really puzzled them. You see, that's what really freaked him out. In all of this, he's just, Vira. They asked, "Do you have any money on you?" And he didn't try to hide. "Yes," I replied, 300 Swiss francs. They looked at each other. It seemed strange to them that I was not disturbed at the prospect of their taking all my money. In truth, at that moment, money didn't mean anything to me. I just wanted to get to the temple. They said, "We can kill you, we can torture you, we can do whatever we want with you." Again, I replied very calmly, "There would be nothing auspicious in that, either for you or for me. So it's better not to do that." Can you imagine with that? Are you kidding me?
The main thing with that was that, like, I was totally new. Like, I never been in a temple, so I took everything, like, just, kind of naive in a way. Like, I just took everything, it's all true,
Hey, Rocket Krishna Mari.
Like, I didn't, like, doubt any of that. And,
Yes,
like, I was thinking in terms of karma, it's not good for him.
Yeah, I can
So I was
understand.
like, it's not good for you because you'll get reactions.
But I can
So
imagine from their point, what? Are you kidding? We're about to kill you and rob you and torture you. And you say, yes, it wouldn't be good for you to do that. That's not good. All right, let's go on. And as it says here, that completely shocked them. And at that point, they threw away their facade of rough soldiers. When they learned of the places I had passed through on my journey, they looked at each other in great amazement. One of them murmured, "He passed through Bistrika. But no one can even get close to that place. Even Unperfor and the Red Cross don't go there. Yet he passed through there with his hand in this funny bag while murmuring some Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna." Then the whole situation changed. They became very friendly and wanted to help me. They gave me a place to stay overnight, and the following day they gave me a ride to the next town, Tomislavgrad. But before we get to that point, you have to tell me that story about that one guy who came, right?
Yeah, there was when I was writing for that magazine, they told me make it like shorter.
Yeah, I
because-
understand. It's okay. But
there is a part when they brought me to their base, then my mother's last name was like a Serbian name, and these are like Croatian military.
yeah.
So when they ask me what's your mother's last name, then they realize I'm like I have a blood connection with like enemy.
Yeah, yeah.
So most of them they're kind of like okay, but one guy next morning he comes to my room.
So he's all alone in the room, right?
Yeah, I'm alone in the room.
He comes
Yeah.
alone in the room.
He comes and he starts telling me how he kills people, how he like at night he crawls on the ground, and then with the
Knives.
with the knives, and he just cuts people's throat.
The whole team was like that, right?
Yeah, there was few of
the
them.
terrorists, they just, assassins.
Yeah, so he takes his knife out, this like huge knife, and he has this like some decoration, and you can see inside is like blood. It's like dark, like black, turn black.
Yeah.
But he didn't wash it. It's like you can see it's all blood, like in these like.
We have to.
what they
We
call-
only have some minutes left. So.
And so he takes that knife out, and he's telling me how like when he cuts their throat, how they're like shaking, how they
Oh God.
move their legs, and like he's like just like
He's
pig,
trying to freak you out.
just like pigs,
He's trying to scare him.
So, and I'm like, okay, what to do now? So I had the Krishna's picture. So I take that picture out.
Now, which picture was it? Krishna sitting
It was
on the
it
rock?
was Krishna from Bhagavad, yeah, sitting on a rock with long hair
Yeah, yeah.
and
yeah.
with the
And
calf.
yeah, the cow, a calf.
Yeah. And so I take that picture out, and he's looking at the picture, and he's like, wow, she's so beautiful.
She's so beautiful.
He thinks it's some girl. And I'm like, this is God. And he just, all of a sudden, I have no idea why and how he
Transformed.
just like completely like changes and he put his knife back and he just goes away.
Miracle number 3 and 4, right? I mean, come on. All right, let's continue because we may run out of time. So that happened while I was in this camp. So they gave me a place to stay overnight, and overnight, this is what happened. The following day, they gave me a ride to the next town, Tomislavgrad. But that wasn't the end of my adventure. To get to Croatia, I still had to go through 3 checkpoints with very rigid controls. Even people with the required documents had a hard time passing through. And what to speak of me, who had only an expired ID card with a photo that didn't really resemble me. Still, early the next morning, we started. Soon the car was on a road with thick forests on either side. The road was muddy and winding. I chanted the whole time. One of the 2 soldiers sitting in front said, "You know, we really don't know how you're going to get through this time, but if you do, you're really lucky." Krishna, I thought. The recent incidents had increased my faith in him enormously, and I was sure he was listening. "All I can do is chant your names," I said to myself, "and if you want, please help me." We approached the first checkpoint. Both soldiers pulled out their identification cards and some other documents. When asked about their mission, one of the soldiers said he was the commander of a squad that detected and destroyed mines and that he was on a mission. I chanted in the back seat, trying hard to hear the mantra. The soldier at the checkpoint looked at me without saying anything. "All right, go on," he finally said. They didn't even check his ID. Is it possible? I asked myself while my 2 fellow travelers stared at each other with mouths wide open in wonder. When we came to the second checkpoint, we weren't even stopped. The soldier just waved us through. My companions' mouths were wide open again. It's a wartime. Nobody just lets, during the wartime, people just go through a checkpoint. The third one was the hardest, they told me. But what happened was similar to what happened at the first checkpoint. The soldiers checked the documents of my fellow travelers and asked them where they were going, where they were coming from, and when they would return. I continued to chant. The soldiers looked at me but didn't ask me anything. Then we entered Tomislavgrad, a city near Croatia. We were all pleased that everything had gone so smoothly. They let me out and drove off. I continued happily chanting Hare Krishna on my japa beads. In Tomislavgrad, I bought some fruit and offered it to Krishna's picture on a park bench. I had 1 hour before my bus to Croatia was to leave. I was just finishing with my simple offering ceremony when two police officers approached me. With my palm, I signaled them to hold off asking me any questions until I had finished my ceremony. The police, he said, he's so confident now. That
They stopped.
and they stopped.
And they waited.
They waited
5 minutes.
very, very patiently. Is it miraculous? It's like number 5 miracle, isn't it? This story, I never get tired of this story. After a few minutes, I finished the ceremony, and they checked my ID. Finding no proper documentation, they returned me to the 3rd checkpoint. They rebuked the soldiers at the checkpoint for having let me pass. The soldiers claimed that they'd never seen me before. Although after hearing my description of the car I'd been in, they remembered it and all the details about it. But they still couldn't remember me. Then they received the order to send me back to Travnik. That's where he began, all the way back to the city he came from. Again, I very intensely thought of Lord Krishna. Krishna, I asked, are you really going to return me to Travnik after all that's happened? But I surrendered to Krishna's desire, though not happily, knowing that in any case I couldn't go against his wishes. However, this last reversal turned out to be just another test. Meditating on the power of prasadam, I offered some fruit, of the fruit I had offered, to the soldiers at the 3rd checkpoint. They accepted it and ate with satisfaction. After a short conversation, they decided to let me go, although they had just received an order to send me back to Travnik. Miracle number 6. They even stopped the truck and convinced the driver to drive me to Posuđe, a city on the border of Bosnia and Croatia, where I had some relatives. That night, my relatives arranged for the documents I needed to enter Croatia. The next day, I arrived at the temple in Rijeka. Finally, I met the deities and devotees, and there was no end to my happiness. By the mercy of Krishna, Guru, and the devotees, I am still living in an ISKCON temple, and whenever I recall all these incidents, I remember Srila Prabhupada's immortal statement, "Impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary." Now, is that a story or what? Now, my little involvement with "impossible is a fool in the world's dictionary." Thank you, Guru. You can go now. go back to Travnik. Just kidding. So,
Hare Krishna?
Vijay, you have a question?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Are you in ecstasy at that story? Did you hear it before?
No, this is wonderful, Prabhu. Wonderful session. This is the first time for me.
Yeah.
And now I became interested in buying Vijaya Prabhu's book.
Yes, it's being printed as we speak in Bombay or Mumbai. It got delayed by the COVID pandemic, but it's actually on the way. So as soon as they come in, we'll let you know.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Sure. So just a little my own little involvement with impossible is a word in the Fool's Dictionary. This involves the 17 books in 2 months marathon in May, June 1975. Well, I was involved in book production beginning in 1973 in New York. That's where the press was. It's called ISKCON Press, and it became the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, Prabhupada found. And for various reasons, I started proofreading in the Bhagavatam. I started proofreading the third canto near the end. Actually, it was Lord Varaha and battle with Hiranyaksha, like that. And then we went through the third canto and the fourth canto. But the process was too slow. Prabhupada had already written the whole CC, and we were still wending our way, finishing the fourth canto, you know. So it was decided to consolidate the whole BBT in LA. As it was, the production was in New York, and all of the printing and distribution, the warehouse was in LA. So it all concentrated in LA, so we had to all move. So after moving, and that's how I got to go to the opening of the Krishna Balaram temple. That's another story. But the whole press went and then came back. So it was settled in, and Prabhupada comes, and then I wasn't there on this morning walk, but Ramaswamy Prabhu and Radha Ballabha, who were the main managers of the press, they had figured out, after we had spent a whole year printing the fourth canon, which is 4 volumes, you know, which is ridiculous. They said, we figured it out where we can print 2 volumes per month, Srila Prabhupada, you know, which is a big increase. And that's quite fast, actually, for any major production, 400-page volumes. So they're on a morning walk. You have to visualize a Venice Beach, which is a famous beach in L.A. Probably would take a morning walk there. So this is leading disciples are there in town. And so Prabhupada stopped, and he said, no, you have to print all 17 volumes in 2 months. There were 15 volumes of the CC out of 17. We had already printed a few of them. And 2 volumes of the 5th canto, which we're just now reading. The books that we're reading every morning. They were also waiting. So that was 17 volumes, which is like, you know, so Ramaswamy says, and it was very logical, Prabhupada, that's impossible. And Prabhupada answered, impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. Because what Prabhupada had already done would have been thought to be impossible. You know, a 70-year-old gentleman coming to a foreign land with no money, no followers, no connections, basically, and starting an international society for God consciousness, Krishna consciousness, and in a matter of, well, then by that time it was like 10 years later. It's a worldwide movement, millions of dollars and so many. So anyway, Prabhupada wasn't going to hear that, and he said, no, this is your assignment, and if you don't do it, you're disqualified. Something like that, you know. So Ramaswamy, you know, and Radha Ballabha, they got, you know, the walk resumed, and they kind of hung back, and they were, you know, talking with each other and figuring out, is it possible? How can we do this? And they came up with a plan. So they came back and they said, probably we can do it, but we need help from you. You have to be available to consult. Because, you know, there's so much to ask Prabhupada about paintings and words and things that were. And we have to be able to fly anybody in who can contribute to this. In other words, some people were flown in from Denver who had skill in indexing, proofreading, all kinds of things, artists like that. Everyone came to LA. And the other thing that happened soon after that is that it would be impossible to do all the paintings in the fine art that they'd done. So they were able to send someone to India to go around on a motorcycle to visit all the places where Lord Chaitanya stopped. You know, it's listed in the CC, his trip to South India and places like that. And he would take pictures of the temples and the places, and that would be the illustrations for the books, rather than all fine art, you know. So that was an important way to speed things up. So the whole thing was set, and then the marathon started. Now my contribution to the marathon for the first month was to free up Jayadvaita Das Brahmachari then, who was one of the main editors. Hayagriva came, he was the other main English editor. The whole difficulty is in the editing. That's what slows things up, you know, editing, proofreading, that kind of thing. So I was just working on BTG and Jayadvaita. But what happened was that Hayagriva was not as strict in his sadhana as he should have been, you know. And so he wasn't able to continue. And so he had, Jayadvaita Das Brahmachari, he had a test on some of this chapter we read, Priyavrata. You know, not the whole thing, several verses, with a bunch of us who had some editing skills and things like that. But because I'd worked for several months already on editing Prabhupada's articles in the BTG, you know, I was used to editing Prabhupada. It's a unique thing, you know. And so I passed that test. So I got the commission to work on 4 chapters of the Antya-lila in the CC and about 4 chapters in the 5th canto. So I was part of that impossible thing. And we actually did it. There was, you know, and Prabhupada sent out a letter to Ramaswara, and he said, "Will you and all your co-workers there, because you've worked on this, you go back to Godhead." So I have that letter at home. I have a copy of it. In my case, they'll make an exception. I'll have to come back again. Keep purifying. But the lesson is, you know, this is such an incredible story. I mean, if that doesn't increase your faith in all of these, you know, Krishna's reality, in his willingness to protect his devotees, you know, that we can also be part of that. I mean, even just the fact that we're, you know, making an effort to be devotees and practicing 4 regular principles, that's a miracle. That's only possible by Krishna's grace to give you the spiritual strength. And the more that you surrender and rely on him, at that point, you know, I'm not saying you're not a surrendered devotee now, but that was like complete surrender. I mean, it was really, you know, Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna. That's the same mood we read in the books of, you know, Prahlad Maharaj and others who was saved, Kunti and all of the Pandavas, you know. So it's real. That's the whole value of this, is that Krishna's really there, and he'll respond to our level of our surrender and dependence on him. I mean, I'm so glad it's now recorded on YouTube. I don't know if it was ever told. It may have been. I don't know. It's been around for, you know, this is 30 years later almost. But when I first read this, I was just like bowled over. You know, I said, this is an incredible story. And then when I went to visit Washington, D.C., when was it, 2017 or 18? I think it was 2018. I saw a show. I didn't know he was there. He was there in Washington, D.C. as a pujari. And we sat down, and on Sunday, they had picnic tables there, and there was some guests. They also heard the whole story he told. But I didn't record it, so I'm glad I got to add some of these details. It's really phenomenal. Okay, so I don't think we're going to go through another, it's a long verse now, summarizing this. We'll resume on Monday, because tomorrow Maharaj is going to give class. Yeah. Please, where's the mic? Use the mic.
The whole thing, that it has really nothing to do with my qualification or anything. It was pretty much like I'm just seeing things happening. It's nothing like as like I was on some level.
Well, you are on some level there, man. You're chanting Hare Krishna constantly.
So Krishna is surprising me every step. It's like, wow, look at this. Like, it's like it wasn't like any like my strength or something. It was just like things.
No, but that's
happening.
That's what devotional, you know, purity or perfection is. I mean, even if you don't think you're pure now and perfect now, at that time, you were demonstrating the act of complete dependence, you know, and it showed in your attitude. That's what saved you.
Yeah,
the fact that they were doing what they did to all the people that they killed and terrorized, and you could imagine how terrorized they were. This reminds me, someone mentioned the same thing. Back in, what year was it, 71? When the Indian-Pakistani war happened, and then what we know now as Bangladesh That used to be part of Pakistan. The country was broken in two, into two parts of it. And then there was a war in which Bangladesh broke off. But that was just about to start. And Prabhupada had contacted Brahmananda and Gargamuni, and his brother Gargamuni and others to come and preach in Pakistan. And they started, Prabhupada wants us to go. Brahmananda was in America, I think, at that time, or maybe Africa. Anyway, he was en route. When the war started, he didn't know, and he lands in, I don't know, what's the main city there? Karachi, is it, or something? The main city in Pakistan, I forget. So and what they were doing was they were taking the Hindus off the buses and killing them off the roads, the soldiers. So they're riding on a bus, and they stop the bus, and there's some Hindus, devotees, and they take him off the bus, and they light him up. He was with like 3 others, I think, Westerners, Americans, or whatever. And it looked apparent what's going to happen. They're going to shoot us, So instead of freaking out, they said, "Prabhus, this looks like it. Get your bead bags out, And they were standing there, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And that was exactly what freaked out his people, is that the calmness, the surrender, and is what shocked them. And they realized, oh wait, these people are maybe divinely protected, inspired. Anyway, they obviously didn't shoot him. And when Brahmananda, and then there was a story planted in the paper how some Americans were killed on the road, and Prabhupada said, oh my God, this must be Brahmananda. So when he walked into Prabhupada's room in Bombay, Prabhupada got up, and gave him a huge hug, which is amazing in itself, but then he wouldn't let him go. He said, he got hugging him. And you can imagine the ecstasy Brahmananda was in, And Prabhupada was so happy to see it. I mean, Brahmananda was a key figure of this movement stabilizing in 22nd Avenue, And he supported it with money, and Satsuk Maharaj did the same thing, they had jobs and everything. And just running the place, and it was, so that was dramatic. And it was the same thing. It was a much shorter thing, but that's where you just say, well, okay, if this is it, might be, the only, well, there's amazing parts of it, but the humorous how you stop chanting, and then you say, yeah, I read how important it is to chant when you die, so I better start chanting again. I mean, that's surrender, that's perfection. So I mean, it's inspiring to hear these stories. And just a plug for this book. I mean, I got to say, there's no other story in this book, but you see how important the Bhagavad Gita was in this. That's what really started him going in that direction. A whole book full of a room full of spiritual books. But the book that finally spoke to you, I didn't hear this part before, that the book was like alive, And that's, so many people have said that, reading Bhagavad Gita. I remember Keshava Bharati Maharaj told the story, how, he was searching, and he took up the Bhagavad Gita, and he couldn't stop reading it. And after he finished reading, he was trying to find a temple. Where's the temple to go, That kind of effect. All right, we had to stop now and get ready for kirtan. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
There's no time.
Inspiration.
Haribol,
Thank you.
Dhanabai, no time.
Haribol.